This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Treating yourself with kindness can be life-changing, and journaling can help you get there. Learn to let go of negativity and improve your self-image. Build the skills you need for managing self-criticism and practicing self-compassion so you can increase happiness and let go of anxiety. Clarity helps us find focus and direction so we can take steps toward what we want for our lives. Allison's work is designed to empower you to get clarity on where you are and where you'd like to be. Growing in self-compassion starts with seeing things as they are. Before making the changes important for healing, it's essential we get real about what's holding us back and no longer working. When you unload the weight you've been carrying, you make room for compassion. It's freeing to create a future beyond the places we've been limiting ourselves. What we can imagine, what could be, is where new possibilities open and we come alive. Our dreams, visions, goals, and commitments give us direction and a purpose. They inspire us into action and guide us back on our path when we inevitably get off track along the way. Allison. Valeria Tellez interviews Allison McElroy, the author of The Self-Compassion Journal, Prompts and Practices to Inspire Kindness in Your Thoughts, Emotions, and Actions. Allison is also a speaker, cognitive behavioral therapist, artist, teacher. She is the founder of Center for Spark, a personal growth company committed to radiant well-being. Allison is passionate about empowering and inspiring people to come alive, live their brightest visions, and light up the world with love and joy. Drawing from more than 15 years of clinical experience and training, Allison is wild about sharing wisdom and tools. She has helped thousands of people transform their lives through her books, courses, workshops, and retreats. Allison's work has been featured in major media outlets, including Very Well Mind, Psych Central, and Medical News Today. Meet Allison at AllisonMcElroy.com and CenterForSpark.com. Here's the interview with Allison McElroy.
In your own words, who is Allison McElroy?
Who I am is people are lit up, empowered, and lighting up the world. That's who I am.
Wow, I love that. It sounds very simple, doesn't it? And clear to me and obvious. And I wonder why so many of us, human beings, with the conditioned mind and bodies, we're not able to see that, to answer these questions the way you did now. Do you wonder that too, Allison?
Yeah, I think I love knowing that who I am is like my calling, my purpose, and bigger than myself. It's, how I contribute to the world. And it's a journey and it changes over time, but there's a lot of strength and ease and clarity that I get knowing who I am and how I show up in the world every day. And knowing that, again, who I'm being, people are lit up in all different situations, they're empowered, and that interactions with me result in the world being lit up with joy and love and people's brilliance. And really keeping that intention of who I am in the world is really important to me.
I set that off record, and I'm not keeping my promise about not getting deeper, going deeper into this, but I think I will. I noticed that a lot of people, especially around me, in person, my family members, when I tell them, like, you needed to uncover who you are, it's important to know who you really are, they look at me very puzzled. Like, what do you mean? I know who I am. That's who I am. Look at me. Look at it, the body. And then they are lured to show me the body, and then the way they speak, the personality and the energies, right? There, I'm alive. I'm here. This is who I am, the body, the mind, and the thoughts. So I guess the question is, how do you guide others to see or to understand or to realize who they really are beyond the body, mind conditionings?
I think, and that's a great question. I think the first part is being willing to choose who you want to be for the world. Because and the first part is giving up our personalities and giving up kind of predictable ways of relating or predictable habits or patterns. We give that up and we choose, who do I want to be? And often I'll take on a way of being as a practice for who I want to be in the world. Sometimes it's for a week, sometimes it's for a year, sometimes it's for 6 months. And I'm just choosing who I am as being powerful. And so I let that guide all of my interactions, my choices. All I have to focus on who I want to be, who I want to show up as, being self-expressed, being connected, being loving, being generous, just practicing these ways of being and having that be a choice for how I show up in the world. And again, guide my actions. And so the sort of unpredictable happens and I get to create the kind of world that I want to live in. Otherwise, default will always be there. And I can wake up as Allison, grumpy, all the kinds of ways. And unless I'm creating an intention around who I want to be and how I want to be for other people in the world, it's very easy to fall back into those old kind of, personalities and the ways that we show up otherwise in default mode. So I think it takes a lot of intention and commitment and sharing that with the world.
I love the way you answered that. It's almost like we are not fixed. There's nothing fixed about the real us. And that was a beautiful insight, the way you described that. I choose what I want to be. It's almost like a what, not who, for a month, for a period of time. I never heard it that way. That makes sense to me because we are not fixed. But there's something about us that really, or in us, or around us, that really feels like it's fixed. It's not the body, not the personality. It has nothing to do with the intellect. There's something with me now that has been here since I was very little. It's almost like that sense of, it's very simple, of being here, being alive. Like, oh, I'm in the body. That's interesting. I remember asking that question when I was really young, 7 years old, I believe, asking that question. Oh, you back here in a female body, without knowing anything about all these things that I know today. So it's kind of interesting, that awareness that we might call that. I think I have heard, of course, the word awareness, that the way of perceiving whatever was perceiving this reality, it was there and it has been there. It's here now and will never go away. It's something that perceives everything, that sees what's happening, which is, you cannot be what's happening if you can see them happening, changing. But when you say that, it makes sense to me that we can think that way too. So we are not fixed and we can be aware of anything that we are ready to. Obviously, we need to be open to that. So speaking of practices, I know you mentioned, intention, but also practices, right, Allison? We needed to practice. In your latest book, the Self-Compassion Journal, prompts and practices to inspire kindness in your thoughts, emotions, and actions. In this book, it seems like that's what you're trying to accomplish. Inspire us to realize who we are through practices. I know it's about self-compassion, but I keep going back to the fundamental truth about uncovering who we are. So yeah, talk to me for a moment about your book. What inspired you to write a book about self-compassion?
I think for me personally, I've struggled, a lot in life, really pushing myself really hard to achieve. And there's a lot of kind of perfectionist tendencies and patterns, and, really getting frustrated when I was making mistakes or what felt like failures and getting defeated. And also, trying to please and, just sort of all those struggles that I think a lot of us humans, where we feel like we're too much or we're not enough. We
Right.
kind of
Oh, yeah.
ping pong
Huh.
around that.
Yeah.
And we start to live our lives kind of in reaction to those beliefs. And I think that discovering personally the practice of, really being kind and gentle with myself, and discovering that for myself, and then discovering that through being a therapist, for nearly 20 years, and seeing that really, huge breakthroughs happen in sessions with clients when we start to talk to ourselves with more kindness, and that opens up everything. And that I think I work with a lot of people that are, high achieving. And again, I can relate in that way. But I think sometimes we feel like, oh, if we stop and are, nice with ourselves, or are understanding that that we won't keep achieving. And that's the way we have to motivate ourselves. And so it was a really radical idea. And there's, so much beautiful research behind it, including from Kristen Neff and Christopher Gerner and other people, that in fact, the more compassionate you are when you fail or make a mistake, or the more you actually can bounce back and learn from your mistakes and keep going, and that it's actually really motivating. And that, I think we all have inner critics that we deal with. And it's really freeing when we start to disengage from that critic and can see it for what it is, and can identify that there's a part of us that's protecting us and will say things, and it has really good intentions, but this inner critic can really block the joy and stop us from, doing bigger and bigger things in life. And so it's really freeing to be able to do some work with the inner critic inside, so that when we hear it, we say, oh, thank you so much for trying to keep me safe, or thanks for trying to protect me. And again, I'm choosing to play a big game, or I'm choosing to be powerful in the world, and being really committed to action and to be creating. And that in order to do that, we've got to really work with the part of ourselves that can, have a field day and beat us up when we're not doing things well, or struggling to forgive ourselves when we did things that weren't aligned with our values. And, how do we move forward when that voice starts taking over and impacts our behaviors?
In these practices, they help so much. It's interesting to hear when you say, I am choosing. So a lot of times we tend to believe that we are the parts, right? The inner critic and all these other parts that try to protect us, per se. So how do we become aware of this I that's choosing, that can choose better ways of experiencing this life? Is that something that is also fixed, Allison? That's something that's fixed, or it keeps changing?
I think there are a lot of ways to connect with that, we can call it higher self or consciousness within us. And I think that, one of the ways is just, and this is in the journal as well, is right, we can start bringing, and I've been a cognitive behavioral therapist, so I've been working with people's thoughts for many, many years. And so one of the ways is to be able to start seeing what our thoughts are, what are we actually telling ourselves, and then start to work with them enough to start to untwist them. And then we start to see, wow, I've actually been believing that is the truth about me, about my future, about who I am. and we start to untwist them. And that's also what's really exciting when people start to see that there's been an underlying belief or thought about themselves, especially that they made up, and that actually isn't the truth. There's all this freedom then to create in the space of that. So I think one of the really powerful ways to access, having less attachment to the voice in our head is to be really clear about what negative thoughts we're telling ourselves, and starting to see that humans have a lot of similar patterns where we can blame ourselves, or we blame others, or we do all or nothing thinking, or we assume it's automatically about us, or we assume the worst case scenario, or we're mind reading, right? All these patterns that we do as humans. So the more we can kind of see, oh, I'm doing that again. I'm assuming they don't like me because they said this. It's not actually the truth. I don't even have to believe that, right? There's all this freedom that comes when we stop identifying with our thoughts, and we get to start choosing how we want to talk to ourselves. So I think, the way we talk to ourselves is really important. And I also think there are ways to, practices like meditation that connect us with that higher self that is naturally really compassionate and really warm. And I love it in one of Tara Brach's books. I think it was in Radical Acceptance. She talks about, and I have this metaphor in the book as well, but I think it really captures it. She talks about, you're walking along and you see a really cute dog and you want to pet it, and you walk up and it snarls at you, and you're kind of scared and you're upset. And then you look closer and you see, the dog has its paw stuck in a trap, or, in the gate. Oh, of course, that's why it's doing that. And you kind of soften and you understand. And I think that we're really capable of doing that with ourselves. Like, oh, of course you thought that, or you were feeling that. That's what was going on for you. So really, that naturally loving, compassionate, wise part of ourselves is always there, and we always have access to it. And I think, different people find different ways to connect with that part of themselves that really has that wise knowing that's like the vast sky there. And I think, another way to connect is also just really being courageous enough to lean into our uncomfortable feelings and getting to the other side of them, right? When we spend a lot of time trying to avoid them, we don't get to break through to the other side where there's a lot of confidence and freedom and fun and play. But we've got to, really be able to make space for uncomfortable sensations and comfortable feelings, and be intentional around being with them to be able to get to the breakthrough to the other side of them. And I think all of those in combination have us connect with the very natural self-compassion that we're capable of as humans.
Yes, 1,000,000,000 times to all of it. And I love the piece on leaning toward our pain, our difficult emotions. That has been such an amazing practice for me. And what I tend to do, I know you call it the higher self. I don't have a name for it now. I was calling life now. Yeah, let's keep the higher self because you mentioned. I usually ask it, the higher self, to guide me through whatever happens. And there's a lot of, it almost goes beyond courage in a way, because I feel like there's this trust. It's, I have to use the word trust because it feels like that. It's a place where there's no fear of what could happen. Although it could go wrong too, because sometimes when we give into negative emotions or very strong emotions, something dangerous could happen. But because of that trust, in my case, it has happened in the past, of course, because I trusted so much and I just gave in, and then bad things happened. And now it has softened in a way, and then it doesn't really happen anymore. So I'm wondering what happened, what changed. It might be that intention, right, Megan? I'm a lot more intentional about this process of navigating emotions, and hard ones, strong ones. It might be. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it sounds like a beautiful journey. And I think what I heard in that too was that there's um, a willingness to experience it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
Yes.
the first is like a willingness that there's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad, that this is part of being human, and just a willingness to let whatever feeling wash over or be present and to give space to it and to be willing to experience it. I think is huge. And then from there, it sounds like, over time, when you keep practicing being willing to experience all of that and you see, wow, I think a lot of times people think, oh, if I allow myself to experience the depth of the sadness or grief or anger, I'll never get back. It'll be endless. It'll just keep going, or I'll lose it, or I'll flip out on someone, right? Like all the fears that we have around really surrendering and being willing to experience really, really hard sensations and emotions. And I think over time, as you practice and you see, oftentimes, like even, emotions even have like a 90-second sort of reaction in the body. That if
Yeah. Yeah.
let them really, like, sadness is here, you label it, you give it like a minute and a half. It sort of does its thing. You're not resisting it. You're letting it flow through you, and you're like on the other side of it. And so I think, whereas we can spend months trying to avoid it, but like it actually can be done in 90 seconds, just to really give yourself permission and be willing to experience it. And I think that builds trust, like, oh, I'm seeing that each time I allow myself to feel the anger or the sadness and know that there's really beautiful values underneath, right? Often with anger, I value respect and consideration, and that makes sense to feel angry. I'm sad because I love somebody, like that they make sense. There's nothing wrong with feelings, like the really allowing yourself in that practice over and over again. You say, I survived it. I actually feel better. I've healed through it, that there's a real trust that, I can do hard things. I can handle hard things, and I'm not scared to experience them. And there's, not only is there more openness and willingness to keep experiencing more uncomfortable feelings, I think that naturally starts to shift, behaviors that maybe weren't helping us, like stuffing it with food or alcohol,
Yeah.
other
Right.
things to keep avoiding. Like, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel the depth. I don't want to feel, like boredom, whatever it is. Right. And being able to identify, that I've been avoiding feeling, and the willingness. Yeah. I think it builds trust in ourselves that we're a lot more powerful than we think we are.
So let's see. I have some of the opening questions. I'll be asking you questions about your book in a moment, more questions. But yeah, I wanted to ask you this one. What is the difference between self-compassion, self-love, self-empathy, self-forgiveness, self-kindness? There are so many names, so concepts, ideas. Is the self-compassion just a name for all the others, or do you actually see a difference between them?
I mean, I think, right, self-love would be the biggest umbrella for all of that, really loving self. And I think that, with that maybe even bigger is accepting ourselves. And I think that that's where self-compassion and self-forgiveness are kind of elements of that. But being able to really see our shadow parts, and the parts that are like, oh, I don't like that about me, or, just absolute disdain or shame around, or, oh, I hope no one finds this out about me, or these parts of us that we wish, we could get rid of. When we're working on embracing, accepting all of our parts and really identifying, I'm a human, and that's just part of the deal. I'm going to have
Yeah,
all of
right,
it.
right.
And I think that that's huge. And I think that, out of that comes a lot of spontaneous love and joy, because I think, resisting parts of who we are or trying to hide parts of who we are can really take up energy. But when we start to see, I can still, I can have strong values, and, and maybe have feelings like disappointed that I did something, and see that it wasn't aligned with values, and see that forgiveness could be helpful in healing something that happened in the past, or even someone else, right? And their actions. But I think really accepting ourselves, all of ourselves, is the journey. And I think that leads to, again, a lot of love and joy and freedom to be who we are. And it opens the space to really choose, how we want to be when we see our patterns and love ourselves anyway.
When I think about freedom, I just mentioned that word too when you did. I love the way you talk about self-acceptance. And what comes to me is that in a way, we are already free, right? To be anything that manifests, because that's what life is. All this here that we are experiencing, that's an experience anyway, that is free to be what it is. But at the same time, we are trying to become free enough of the attachments so we can really experience that other possibility, which is, I call it joy, bliss. So in a way, it's interesting to kind of contemplate the idea that we are actually already free. So that kind of gives us that space to breathe deeper and exhale freely, that it's okay to let ourselves and everything else just to be what it is. But at the same time is now, so it's such a paradox in a way, isn't it? Freedom, we're already there, but at the same time, we're not.
I think too, it can be, moment to moment. So, going back to what you said about self-love versus self-compassion and, all the different ways we can be connected with ourselves. I think self-compassion can really help when we're giving ourselves a hard time about something.
Yeah,
like in the moment we don't like what we did, or we're frustrated, or we want to do it differently, or we're mad at ourselves for feeling a certain way. And so I think that I think what you're saying too is like freedom can be in one moment where we say to ourselves something as simply as, I'm having a hard time right now.
That's freedom too, right?
I'm feeling I'm having a hard time, and I'm not and a lot of humans on the planet are having a hard time in the same way right now. And I have a choice. I can keep suffering in this moment and keep beating myself up, even though it's over. Or I have a choice. I can commit to doing things differently next time. I can take action. I can choose to, be gentle with myself. But I think that it's like you said in the beginning, right? We're not fixed. We can feel like we're fixed, but actually moment by moment, we can make these choices around, okay, what am I telling myself here? Do I want to keep believing that? Because it's causing me suffering in this very moment right now. What else can I tell myself? Or how can I shift the way I relate to myself in this moment that would then open up? Would I be willing to be compassionate toward myself and see what opens up when I'm not pulling myself away from the moment and going up into my head and beating myself up for whatever is going on in the moment. So I think it's a willingness and a choice over and over and over with something that you're committed to that's bigger than you.
I love how you bring spirituality into your practice as a therapist. I have been seeing this a lot more these days. So talk to me for a moment about how you do that, how you bring this, let's say, out there ideas into therapeutic practice.
I would say, I bring a lot of Buddhist ideas and practices, I would say, into sessions, and have been very interested in, reading Buddhist books and doing Buddhist practices for many, many years. And I think that pulling from, again, ideas like leaning into discomfort, ideas around working with the mind, I think really overlap really well. And dropping storylines and realizing we are not our thoughts, we are not our minds. And I think working with clients to have them figure out, how do you connect with yourself and how do you find ways to create peace within? And sometimes that's with movement, sometimes that's with meditation, really exploring what feels and different at different moments. But I think that a lot of spiritual practices connect really well, especially with cognitive behavioral therapy and art therapy, and encouraging people again to connect with that consciousness or awareness that's and wisdom that's deep and accessible and within always.
I want to mention again that your book, The Self-Compassion Journal, it's available for pre-order now on Amazon, and it would be released on September 13th. So I'll have that information on your podcast profile too, Allison. I think it might be available by the time this episode is published anyway. That's the practice that you engage in, that you call it Spark Coaching. So talk to me for a moment about that. I would love to hear more. And also the courses and workshops and also retreats that you offer.
So yeah, Center for Spark is something I founded a few years ago. And the workshops and courses and coaching are all connected to, number one, being able to take the time and space needed to really explore what lights you up, what brings you joy. Are you living in alignment with that right now? Are you loving how you're contributing to the world? Are you loving the relationships you're in? And really, I think giving space and time to assess where you're at. Is this it? And then being able to create a vision for how you want to live, to really create the life that really excites you, creating the kind of life that you're just called into, can't wait to live, that you're excited about, and it feels aligned, that you're doing what you're able to share your gifts, things you're excited about, and be able to really contribute in the world in a way that is inspiring and energizing. And so that's really part of Spark, is really being able to figure out what brings you a ton of joy and lights you up. And the second part of that is who you're being in the world adds that spark. And I think that oftentimes I've gone to amazing workshops and retreats and classes and courses. I'm like, yes. Yeah. And then afterwards, it's so hard, right? And so I think, another element of Center for Spark is really creating the structure for accountability, so that when you make commitments for the goals for your life and the values you have and the way you want to live out those values, and it may be radically different from how you're experiencing your life. It could be a job change, moving to another part of the world, right? Knowing that anything is possible for yourself. What do you want to create as an artist for your life? And then really having the structure and accountability to keep creating that, even in the face of things not working out or difficulties, right? Like to keep being unstoppable, because it really takes something to keep creating the kind of life that you want to contribute to the world and who you want to be for the world. So it's really exciting. And I have a background in art therapy. So I use a lot of creative hands-on exercises and activities for people to get really deeply connected with themselves. But I also really believe in the power of community and healing. And I think that we heal best among others. And it feels really great to be in community. So that's a huge part of Center for Spark as well.
I love the name, Center for Spark. Yeah, it's the spark, right, that we need. I love the way you say, too, on your website. I don't have it here, but you talk about the light. I think you quoted Rumi, right, on that? What was that quote again, Ali?
I think it's something like, I'm going to butcher it, although I should know it, but it's something like, it's your light that lights up the world.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yes.
And I really think that that's the foundation of Center for Spark. When you're doing the inner work and you're connecting with that natural energy and joy that is ours, then you're lighting up from the inside out, and it really benefits everybody. Everybody.
Almost goes back to that idea. You probably have heard that my healing is your healing, and our healing together is the healing of this reality. So it goes back to that, doesn't it? It goes back to doing the healing work. So thank you so much for being in this reality, in this field of healing, being open to it. It's such a beautiful thing to see. It's very close to my heart, this path of healing for some reason. And I really appreciate you and what you do, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria. And I really appreciate what you're doing with your work and your podcast, and the impact that you're having in the world is very inspiring. And I'm grateful for our conversation today.
I have a few more questions for you, the ending questions. But before that, so I want to ask you a question about, the Spark coaching. Is that done online, remotely, or in person, groups? How does it work, Ali?
It's remote and groups. It's one-on-one and groups. And that was something that the pandemic
helped with.
Naturally opened up. Was not something I was doing very much of. But I found that being able to work remotely with anyone in the world has been really exciting. To be able to work together with people from all different parts of the world together is exciting. My favorite, of course, are in-person workshops and retreats, but I really love the one-on-one work and group work that I do. I think, like you were just saying, when someone's transforming who they are and, unleashing the things that have been holding them back, whether it's hard feelings or anxiety, depression, or whatever it may be, and they're starting to really come alive, then it's really neat to see how it reverberates into their families and communities and workplaces. And so even one-on-one work is really world work.
Another beautiful insight, of course. Yeah, right. What can I say to that? Yes. There's something else in your book that you say that caught my attention. You said, joy and suffering don't exist in our circumstances. They exist inside of us. Yeah, I stopped for a while when I read this.
Yeah, it's something I had to remind myself of all the time, right? As humans, we're like, no, but it is the circumstances. No, but it is. And I was like, well, is it?
Is it? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah.
Look closer, right?
I feel really grateful for having so many people work with me with their thoughts and what's going inside their minds for so many years, like I said, for almost 20 years, that to see the humanity in the way that we create our own suffering. And I'm right there as well, as a fellow human going through all of the same and similar suffering. But I also get to see how much joy is naturally in us. And it can just, when we shift things and let go of things, the natural spontaneous joy that can emerge effortlessly when we're doing the work is really exhilarating to be around, and is a lot of the oxygen for me in the work that I do, to see that transformation happen for people.
I have a few more questions. Before I ask you those final questions, Ali, would you like to add anything else that we left unsaid, or read a passage in your book?
I think we've covered a lot. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I think I'm just looking through my book if there's anything. Oh, maybe I'll just read what I flipped to. I happened to flip to page 34, and it's an affirmation that's in the book that says, I can hear my inner critic without taking its direction. I can befriend who I am in all my parts.
Yeah, I love that one too. That's wonderful that you mentioned the affirmations. I love them. And there's one in particular that really caught my attention. The one that you say, I can put my hands on my heart and bravely lean into discomfort. I can ride the waves of my emotions. That's another one that caught my attention. The one you read, it's very similar too. That's that alignment, right? The message that we need to hear. It's fascinating how they come to us in the right moment. What do you love most about being in the human body or being the human body?
What do I love most about? Oh, I love it. I think joy and play and community. I think I feel most alive when I'm connected with others and I'm in nature and I'm experiencing, the joy of connection. I feel really grateful to be in this body, experiencing the connections and connections that I'm experiencing in the world. They bring me a lot of joy.
What 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they lose the body, before they die?
Well, I think being able to completely accept themselves, the rough parts, the smooth parts, the dark, the light, the shadow, to be able to really love every little thing about you, to really have warmth, kindness, and compassion for all of you, knowing you're a human, having a human experience, and really having love for our humanness. That's number 1. Number 2, I wish for humans to have the experience of living a life that they really love. It's really possible to be really lit up and creating a life that you're really excited about, that you're really inspired by. And 3rd, for people to experience the love and the joy and fun in connection, in community, being with others, and the joy in contributing to our world, to contributing to others, the joy in just being a contribution.
What is not to love about everything that you just said? It feels almost like a meditation, a guided meditation, a very short guided meditation. Thank you so much, Ali. Wow, how beautiful. Before we say goodbye, where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
So Center for Spark is my website, and you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Center for Spark. And the book is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and some other websites. And it comes out September 13th, although I encourage pre-orders because that gets more of the book out into the world. I'm committed to people loving themselves all over the world. And that's it.
Wonderful. I'll have those 2 links on your podcast profile too. Thank you so much again, Ali, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Allison McElroy and her work, please visit AllisonMcElroy.com and CenterForSpark.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.